Today we are counting down the top 11 most iconic album covers of all time. Starting with number 11, we have the eponymously titled debut album from Ramones. That's right, Ramones. And here you see them stood up against a brick wall in the Bowery neighborhood of New York. Tommy is on his tiptoes and Joey is hunched down a little bit to make their heights a bit more even. This album kind of marks ground zero for punk rock, widely considered to be the first punk rock album. Moving on to number 10. And we have Nirvana with Nevermind. This album cover shows a 4-year-old Spencer Eldon swimming towards a dollar bill on a hook. Of course, that dollar bill and hook were added later in post-production. The photo was taken at the Pasadena Aquatic Center by photographer Kurt Weddle. Cobain reportedly got the idea from a documentary about water births. When Johnny Rotten heard about the album Nevermind, he is quoted as saying, "I thought, Nevermind, have you lost your bullocks or something?" Which brings us to number 9, and it is the Sex Pistols with Nevermind the Bullocks. And of course, Kurt did take inspiration from the title, Nevermind the Bullocks, shortening it to Nevermind. This cover was designed by Jamie Reed, and it is a bright day-glow yellow with pink, with cut-up lettering. And this sort of cut-up lettering style would sort of come to define sort of a punk graphic art aesthetic, where you take letters with different fonts from different sources. Maybe say cut one letter from the headline of different magazines and put those together to form a word, such as they did here with Sex Pistols. Of course, the US version of this is pink and green, but the original was yellow with red. Moving on to number 8. From Nevermind the Bullocks to Nevermind the Buttocks, maybe? Or how about Nevermind the Bullocks, here's the Buttocks. And that is Bruce Springsteen's Born in the USA. This famous photo taken by rock photographer Annie Leibovitz. Some people thought that maybe he was urinating on the flag, but Bruce said no. The picture of my ass looked better than the picture of my face. There was no secret message. Moving on to number 7. And we have a bit of a double entry. I'm going to put 2 albums at number 7, and those are The Clash with London Calling, and also Elvis Presley's self-titled debut, Elvis Presley. And you can see where The Clash have drawn their inspiration from Elvis, with the pink and green text set atop a black and white photograph. The photograph of Elvis was taken at Fort Homer Hesterly Armory in Tampa, Florida on July 31st, 1955. by William V. Robertson. And the photo in the Clash album cover is bassist Paul Simonon smashing his Fender Precision bass against the stage at the Palladium in New York in 1979. He was angry that bouncers would not allow audience members to stand up out of their seats. The bass is currently on display at the Museum of London. Moving on to number 6. Such a striking album cover. And it is Low End Theory by Tribe Called Quest. Complex Magazine ranked this as the number 1 most iconic hip-hop album cover of all time. The cover featured an altered photograph of a kneeling woman painted in Afrocentric colors. And of course, low-end theory refers both to economic status and bass. All about that bass. No trouble. Moving on to number 5, and we have David Bowie, Aladdin Sane. Just happened to also have this one on cassette. Of course, I have most of these albums in one format or another. Just happen to have those lying around. This image of the lightning bolt across the face has almost become a meme, where anyone can just paint that on their face and everyone knows they're dressed as David Bowie. And of course, there have been many homages and parodies of this album cover. David Bowie's manager wanted to make this album cover as expensive as possible, because he thought if they spent a lot of money, then they would promote the album. So he insisted that they use a 7-color printing scheme instead of a 4-color printing scheme. And that made it the most expensive album cover ever made at the time. Moving on to number 4. And this is another kind of a meme album cover, and that is Joy Division, Unknown Pleasures. The band chose this image. It is an image of pulsar radio waves from the pulsar CP 1919, and they took the image from the Cambridge Encyclopedia of Astronomy. Originally, this was a black on white image, but the album's cover designer Peter Saville reversed the image to white on black. Since these radio waves are coming from space, he thought that was more fitting. And that was against the stated wishes of the band. Went out on his own there, but he made the right choice. Moving on to number 3, it is The Velvet Underground and Nico, the debut album from The Velvet Underground with its iconic Banana by Andy Warhol, and of course on the original albums it said peel slowly and see next to the banana, and you would peel away the banana to you would peel away the skin of the banana to reveal a flesh-colored banana underneath. In order to have this peel away banana skin, they had to buy a special machine to make the album covers. And the record company was willing to do that because Andy Warhol demanded it, and they wanted any association with Andy Warhol because he was so hot at the time. Moving on to number 2, it is Pink Floyd, Dark Side of the Moon. This album cover was created by Storm Thorgerson, and it shows a prismatic spectrum. So the triangle is a prism. The white light is the full spectrum light hitting the prism and then splitting into the spectrum of the rainbow. The band requested something simple and bold that would represent the themes of the album as well as the band's light show. And this kind of almost became like a logo for the band, where you see this image and you instantly know Pink Floyd, and definitely a huge part of Pink Floyd's lore and iconography. But now, the number 1 most iconic album cover of all time, and that is the Beatles' Abbey Road. The picture was taken on the zebra crossing near the entrance of EMI Studios on Abbey Road. The cover was designed by Apple Records creative director John Kosh. Usually just went by the name Kosh, kind of like Prince or Madonna. The photograph was taken by Lane McMillan, and the police stopped traffic for 10 minutes while he stood on a step stool and took these iconic photographs, one of which became the cover for Abbey Road. It was the first Beatles record that featured neither the band's name nor the album name on the cover, and Kosh said that was because they were so famous that everyone automatically would recognize them. The license of the car that appears, the license plate of the car that appears on the cover of this album was stolen repeatedly. And this album cover definitely is a meme in its own right, and it has been parodied and paid homage to hundreds of times, and of course tourists gather there and try to recreate this iconic photograph every day. And that wraps up our list. What are your picks for the most iconic album covers of all time? Let me know in the comments. The next video is going to be the most essential punk albums of all time. So make sure you come back for that one.